What's up, guys? This is Bad Wolf from Texas Night Stalkers. Took a poll on our last video when we were doing sharing some props here the other day to see what the level of interest would be in doing another video regarding thunder bees. So I'm going to talk a little bit about them, their effectiveness, some of their pros, some of their cons, and then some tips and tricks to make them more reliable. So I guess for a few years now they've been available, and they've made a couple of upgrades to them. This is a standard thunder bee with the metal spoon that they added a couple of years ago. It's much more resistant, durable than the plastic one they used to come with. And the way these things work is you have two parts. You have a shell and you have a core. The core is reusable. You buy these, I think, on eVike for, I think, $21 plus shipping, tax, etc. And this entire thing is reusable. It'll come with several pull pins. It's just really just a key ring and a cotter pin. So if you lose all of them, you can buy them replacements for pennies at Home Depot. It's got a spoon, a spring-loaded hammer, and then on the inside of the core is you place a 12-gram CO2. And the way this works is, and then the other half is the shell. Spare CO2. The other half is the shell. This goes over top of the core, and you tighten it up and seat it. And what ends up happening is that once you pull the pin, remain holding the spoon. This one's not armed, by the way. And then when you throw it, you let go, and the spring-loaded hammer will flick the spoon out of the way and smack a very sharp nail pin striker, whatever you want to call it, that busts open the CO2, and the CO2 fills up the shell until it ruptures. And it creates about 120 decibel bang when it goes off. And we use them as room clearing devices. They count as a kill. They're better than paint grenades because paint grenades spin, and they just use like a surgical tubing that squeezes paint out of them, and the paint goes, one direction most of the time. It very rarely coats an area. And in MagFed generally, and these were originally an airsoft thing, these count as a kill inside of a room or within 10 feet, 10-foot radius. So if you throw one of these behind a bunker that guys are in, you can't quite shoot them out, and it goes past the bunker, stays within 10 feet of where the player is and blows up, that player is dead. If you are trying to go inside of a room or building or whatever that enemies are in, and you don't want to just run through the door and get shot, you can toss these in there. They may disperse out the back door or something, or they may not, and these count as a kill if they're inside of a room with someone as well. So the way they work, as I described, is the CO2 gets released, and it's got some, porting and stuff that the CO2 comes up and then goes back down, fills this shell until it ruptures. Well, a lot of people, and including myself, bought these, didn't think anything of them, and just took them out and tried to play with them. And sometimes they're amazing. Sometimes they don't go off at all. Sometimes they have a 3-second fuse. Sometimes they have a 10-second fuse. So with that comes some frustrations if it doesn't go the way you expect. And what ends up happening is a lot of people give up on them, and then they assume these aren't very good, I don't really like these, etc. Well, about a year ago, myself and my teammates decided to do some R&D, because I realized that, like everything else, you try different mag pouches, you try different radios or antennas for radios, or different earpieces, or you get a different barrel, or you try different valves or triggers for your gun. You basically critique and R&D every part of your kit in order to make it better. And we had never done that with these. A few of us had just bought them and had them, and then were reluctant to use them half the time. I know I kind of became like, I don't know if I want to waste it, it's probably not going to work. And then if I did use it and it didn't work 100%, then I became that much more frustrated with them, and I was less likely to use it again later. But I realized we have never really sat down and tried to figure out how to make them work better. Now, there's some stuff that's like quick and easy and low information that's on the internet about these, but we found that some of those tips and tricks only has a certain level of merit to them, and we wanted to take it a step further. So we sought out to find, well, what makes it go off in 3 seconds versus 15 or 10 or whatever. What makes it not go off at all? What things are limiting it, and what can we do as far as storage and preparation and changes to them that will make them more reliable. And we're kind of shooting for a 3 to 5 second fuse on average. You know, we want it to throw around the corner, and we really want it to go off pretty quick. We don't want it to go off in our hand while it's still in midair going into the doorway. So you're shooting for about 3 to 5 seconds, but 1 or 2 is not a problem unless you're trying to throw it a long distance, and then you're just going to blow up in midair. So what we found on the internet, there's some things that they say that you can add and do. And one of them was, some suggest putting a penny or a dime, but pennies usually will fit, sometimes they won't, you have to use a dime. Putting a penny or a dime or several in the bottom of this cap. And what that does is that reduces the amount of room for this CO2, and it pushes it up higher, so that when the striker comes down and smacks it, it doesn't have as far to travel. It can potentially get a deeper puncture, and therefore let more CO2 out faster. And that works reasonably well. It's certainly not a bad idea, and it doesn't cost much. You know, we're talking about 1 to 10 cents depending on which way you go, and it's certainly not something that is game changing, but it doesn't hurt. I think there's definitely some truth to it, that it definitely puts it a little closer and might have a harder strike, especially if you have a worn or short, which you can adjust them, but a worn or short striker pin. After messing around, we tried drilling holes. I did everything from drilling holes down here, back when I had no coins in it. I drilled holes here, wherever. Sometimes I drilled too many holes. Sometimes it went off like almost instantaneous. Holes help. As you see, this one doesn't have any. I don't believe that one does either. And this is one that's missing a spoon I haven't replaced yet. This one doesn't. It has one down here, but there's probably a penny in it. That's why it's marked in red, because it is slightly faster because of the hole. But what we found is, regardless of holes and pennies and even your how well you store your springs relaxed, etc., the #1 issue with these things going off quick, slow versus ever is how much puncture you get on the cap of the CO2. So then somewhere I read that Daisy brand CO2s were better versus Crossman, which are more common, I guess. I'm not really sure. Crossman are sold at Academy, and Daisy, I don't know where they're sold other than online, at least off the top of my head. You might find it at Walmart, I guess. But we went out and we started looking around. I went out and found several different brands. This is a Crossman. It's left over from some of this trial and error stuff. Crossman I found are pretty tough. The cap, or whatever you call this little seal that's at the top where the CO2 is pretty stiff or thick. And what I found when I was seeing ones that went off really well and ones that didn't, I was using multiple grenades, so it could have been the striker that was a little bit different, was the one that went off fast had really big, nice holes in them. The ones that didn't had like very tiny punctures, and they seeped out, and it took a lot longer to fill the shell and make it rupture. So we tried Daisy, we tried Crossman. At first I thought Daisy were better. At the end I really couldn't tell. But then I found another brand at Academy that was like off-brand called Monarch. Some good news and bad news. They don't make these, or they don't distribute these anymore. I'm not sure who does, but you might find some that are in stock at a local Academy. They aren't in stock anywhere near me anymore, but I bought this 50 pack. I'm still kind of going through it, but I am looking for a replacement moving forward. One of my other teammates found another brand that I think they replaced Monarch with, called Humorex, or Humorex I believe is what it's called. I'm going to have some links at the end of this video that he said worked really well, and he didn't have any problems with them. They're very similar, where they had very soft seal. So when you're looking at CO2s for a gun, like a Tip-X or a pellet gun or something like that, you're going to judge the CO2 on how many shots you can get. But when it comes to a Thunderbee, you don't give a shit about any of that. You care about how soft this cap is because you want to dump all the CO2 as fast as possible, not worry about efficiency and how many shots I can get and so on and so forth, because it's a one and done deal. So if you can get a hold of Monarch brand, I recommend them highly. If not, there's the other brand. Like I said, I think they're called Umarex, and I looked them up beforehand. Now I've kind of forgotten how it's spelled, but I'll have that tagged up on the video. Some things that Andrew, who found the Umarex brand, did to his cores that he said was very effective, even with Crossmen and daisies, etc., was taking the puncture hammer. I don't know how far I want to zoom in here, but there's a very sharp. It's kind of a spiral with little channels, so it punctures, and then there's like it opens up some avenues for it to allow the gas to come in through. He took this out. You can hold onto this with a pair of pliers and then twist this nut off, and then you can pull this striking pin out, and you can then put it inside of either a vise or something else. Hold it very still, and you can use a file and sharpen this up. He did that to all of his and has excellent results with Crossman, Daisy, and other brands as well, which is something I'm definitely going to do probably after this video, because I haven't gotten around to it. Normally when I think about it, my stuff is all put away. The other thing, like I said, you can drill a couple of holes. There's a couple of ways to consider this. There's a rubber gasket that the CO2s seat up against. For a while there, I was removing them because that makes the gas go up through the head of this thing and then come back down. And if you remove it, then the gas will fill up this cylinder and it can come out through holes that you drill. And you do need to start small and get progressively bigger and find out which one works better. Because I started where I drilled a little bit too big of a hole, and it was like instant bang. So then I had to cut a beer can up or whatever and like slide up in here to, there's the only way I could really fill it, because tape and all that stuff just gets blown out by the CO2. But that is, as far as I can tell. Oh, the one other thing that you'll notice here is, first and foremost, the absolute #1 thing you should do before you do anything else is get pipe thread tape and tape up the threads on the shells, because there is a gasket, and these are much better than they used to be. They used to be very poorly molded plastic, where they're kind of like soft and bendable at the top. Everything was nice down here, but I guess this was the end of the tooling process, and they just stopped, and sometimes it wasn't, perfectly flush. It looks like they may have extended the tooling, and they probably just cut it with a saw, and it's a much thicker and more rigid neck. But either way, I still recommend putting thread tape on these, because that seals this shell to the core. And that's one of the quickest and easiest ways to have these things never go off, is if they have a place for the gas to go other than force it into the shell. So putting thread tape on these is a #1 must do. I just forgot to mention that one first. And then store them, in my opinion, just store them with a CO2 inside of them wherever you want to. Put them in a little milk crate or a box or something like that. So when you need to go grabbing one and it's time to replace one of these things, you unscrew this, you basically just dump it right in there, screw the cap back on, put the shell on, reset your pins, etc. But yeah, in order to set these up, I recommend that you do the core with the shell separate, and you start by pulling this hammer all the way back, and then there is a hole right here you can slide the pin in, and it holds the hammer back momentarily. Then you can come over here and clamp down with your spoon just enough so you can pull the pin out, and then press it down all the way, and then move the pin over here and through these holes that hold the spoon. So now the pin is going through the spoon eyes and right through the core, and it also covers the striker that is in the top of the core. And then you can put your shell on and you're good to go. I would advise that you also bend just a little tiny bit, just any little amount that will make it so it won't fall out. If you were to squeeze the spoon, these things can drop out, but if you put just a tiny little bend, it's easy to unbend. It's also easy to yank the pin out while holding the spoon, but it won't fall out if you squeeze this thing, because I've certainly seen that done. I think I've even done it. There is one other trick I almost forgot to mention. If you are using what you find to have pretty tough CO2 caps, you can do this to help. It's like sort of pre-puncturing. So you notice the hammer sits much higher than the side of the core, and that's because right now there's a fresh CO2 in there, and it's pushing the needle and the striker pin up, which is pushing this hammer back. So one thing you can do, and I'm not going to do it with these because this is a softer Monarch, is you can put it on the edge of a table where the spoon is out of the way, and you can just sort of tap very gently, and it kind of dimples that top. So if you're using Crossman or Daisy or some other type that's very difficult to puncture, it will it'll weaken it. It'll be the exact same spot where it will eventually get punctured, and that is unless you disassemble the whole thing to remove the CO2, it won't be the same spot anymore. But if you just tap it, and you have to kind of get a feel for it. Do it without the shell, obviously, and if you puncture it a little too much, you'll hear it hissing. You've busted the CO2, so you're going to have to like remove it and try again. And you'll get a feel for it of how much to hit it, but you can sit it here and just kind of wrap it on the edge of a workbench or a table, or sit it down on something hard and just tap it with a mallet, and it will just dimple it enough that once you arm this thing and it snaps and smacks the CO2, it should puncture through very efficiently and release all the gas very easily. So that is a bunch of the tips and tricks for Thunderbees, and we've had pretty much gotten to the point where we've got, I would say we are in the high 80s and almost 90th percentile success rate with these, meaning that they go off, and they go off between 3 and 5 seconds. If it goes off in beyond 5 or faster than 3, then I'd say it's still pretty much a success. It's only when they don't go off at all, or they take longer than 8 seconds or more, because by that point you're uneasy about running into the room because it'll blow up and kill you, and the other team that was in there is probably already hauled ass out of the building and gotten a chance to get away, and the grenade is wasted. We don't really have that happen too often. If we make sure we're taping them up, we either pre-dimple them, use good CO2s. We've done a lot of testing on this, and even though I've told you all this stuff, if you buy a set of these shells and cores from evike.com, I'll have a link on that, you still should take some time to do a little research, waste a few CO2s, waste a couple of shells before you come out to a game and expect them to just work. Because that's what we did, and that's what even my cores and my grenades are just mine, but Andrews and Christians, etc., have set theirs up and tested theirs, and they know exactly how they like to prep one before they arm it. So that's Thunderbees tips and tricks. We allow these at the game, and they're highly effective at our game because of the amount of buildings that we have, and teams that do some research, buy these and test them and use them, and use tactics together for room clearing will be more effective, because sometimes it's tough to get up to a building, but once you're up to a building, what's worse than having made it through no man's land or a dead sprint is to walk through a doorway and just get smoked by guys just camping. So these give the breaching team, a sort of a turn of advantage, and they are highly effective at either dispersing people or wiping them out before you enter, so you can go in pretty much in a more safe fashion. If you're using these, we advise you get a ref involved before you chuck them in the doorway. Players by and large are pretty honest, and we expect that if you are inside a room with one of these that goes off, you are dead, friendly or not. But if you can get a ref, then we can get in the room before you toss it, or right as it goes off, we can run in there and call people out. But if you throw one in and there's either a dishonest player or they somehow didn't hear the bang, I mean, in chaos they might hear lots of bangs and not know which one was in their room, and then they turn and shoot you, and then you guys get into an argument, and I shot you first, or you were already dead from the grenade thing. It becomes very difficult as a ref to make a strong, accurate judgment call on that will result in everyone quickly getting back to gameplay and everyone being happy with the answer. So we will have refs in the hot zones, and if you're going to use them, we advise you get a ref involved. And if you are a player on the inside, use the honor system. These things cost money, they cost time, and they cost a little learning curve. Someone makes a good throw on one and it's within 10 feet of you on the outside of a building or inside a room with you, then call yourself out and run back to spawn. There is another option though that we are considering allowing at the game, and we did some tests on these. Enola Gay makes one. This is technically a pyrotechnic, but it's very mild. It makes a loud bang, but it's not very destructive, and it's really no more so than a smoke grenade as far as risk of anything bad happening. But these are Enola Gay EG67 frag grenades. This is also an airsoft product, I think, that started out that way at least, but they are for sale at Texas Paintball. There's some pros and cons to these, and there's some pros and cons to the Thunder Bees we've already talked about. The Thunder Bee pros and cons. The pros are that they're cheaper and reusable. While the core might cost $21, you can get dozens and dozens of throws out of it, and even if you break a spoon, excuse me, not that one, if a spoon breaks off of one, you can buy a new spoon for, I think, like 10 bucks or something like that, and then you can replace it and keep on going. I just haven't ordered one for this one. The downside to Thunder Bees, like we mentioned, is they're a little finicky right out of the box, and you're going to kind of put some research into them. The pros to the Enola Gay is that it will go off every time very reliably, and you don't have to think about it. There's no learning how to use them other than you need to pull the wire straight out on this one versus sideways on their smoke grenades. Other than that, it's a 3 to 5 second fuse. Almost every time that I've ever used one, I've never had that deviate. You throw it in there, it goes bang. There's some BBs inside of it that are a little larger than airsoft size. They kind of go places. They do not really hit people, and they don't hurt. And we did some safety tests on this yesterday where I had one. I just wore regular paintball stuff. I sat down Indian style, gave a little speech. I'm going to show you the video here in a second. Pulled the pin, sat it right in front of me, and it went off. Absolutely nothing. And I've used these in a game as well. But I thought they were louder than they really are because we were playing in metal Connex boxes, and the echo factor of that goes through the roof. So I was always under the impression these are a lot louder than they were. But once I detonated it, just sitting out in the woods, it was not as loud as I thought. After that, we did another test, and I wanted to create sort of a worst case scenario. So we kind of zoomed in, and I pulled the pin, and I held the thing right in front of my face in my hand, wearing a normal paintball glove that I normally wear, and let it go off. And it did not hurt at all. It felt really like a really aggressive high five. Like you throw your hand out there and somebody just wants to come over there and, you know, sting, make your hand sting, and they give you a hard high five, but not an extreme one. No issues whatsoever. I did not clinch the grenade in the video, but Chad and the guys that brought these on for airsoft at Texas Paintball, a guy named Toby or something like that. He wanted these originally at Texas Paintball, and Chad made him do this test. He held it barehanded, and he actually wrapped his hand around it, and he was fine as well, which is why I was willing to do it, having never done it before. So I'll show you that video now and let you guys see the two tests with this, as well as a in-game video of me throwing one through a window, etc. And you can into the Connex boxes during gameplay at a different field a few months ago. So that is the two comparisons between Thunder Bees and EG67 Enola Gays. These are available for sale at Texas Paintball. They're a little on the pricey side when you buy them singularly. They are about $10.50, $10.95 or something like that for one. It's a lot of money. But Chad sells them by the case for 25 of these for $150 before tax. So if you get a big squad of friends together, you guys can pitch in if you wish to, and they come out to about $6.50, I think is the math on that, if you buy a whole case. Or you can go to Evike and you can buy a core for about 21, or several cores if you like, and then you buy packs of the shells. I think a dozen is 18 bucks, so they come out to a little over $1.50 or so for a single shell. They have multiple shells. This is what we call the dumbbell shape. They have one that looks like a pineapple grenade, like a traditional World War II grenade that has like those cut squares on the sides. They have a regular cylinder as well, I believe. I like the dumbbell shape for a couple of reasons. One, it's a little bit narrower overall, and because it's narrower than on the middle than on the ends, it makes it really easy to put some sort of like strap around it and so and so, or a bungee, and hold it to your kit. These will fit in, I don't know about the other ones, but this particular shell I know will fit in a Condor M4 or AR-15 mag pouch, and you don't even need to use the Velcro flap, because the Condor has like a little soft bungee that runs on the outside, and you can ram these down in there, tuck the flap behind it, and then you can just reach and pull these right out, and it's no issues. But there are some other types. I don't think anyone I've ever talked to that uses these even remotely extensively likes the pineapple shell, but some people like the cylinders, even though they're bigger, and I don't like them for that reason, but they say that they're more, I think they're more consistent in where they rupture and how loud they are, but I don't find that to be an issue when I use these dumbbell ones, so that's just a personal preference thing in my opinion. Anyway, if you guys have any further questions, comment on this video and tag me, Burke Harris, and I will try to answer any further questions you have. Other than that, I'll leave it up to the comments, and I'll show you guys the test videos that we did of the EG67s. Guys, let me know what you think about these, because we would like to incorporate them, because we would very much like to see more utilization of either of these products at our games, because the tactics and the ability to breach rooms and clear buildings cannot be understated, especially on this field with the amount of buildings there are. So something to consider, and we hope you guys will register at Texas Paintball. Website is txpb.com, and you can go on there and find a link under events to register for the game. It's Martin Luther King weekend. I believe it is the 15th and 16th of 2022, but I could be off by a day on that one. But please go on there and register, and comment on the video if you have any further questions or concerns. Talk to you guys later. What up, guys? This is Bad Wolf with Texas Night Stalkers. So I'm out here at Texas Paintball, and we're going to do a safety test with real world scenario using an Enola Gay EG67, something we're considering allowing to be in the game as a room clearing device in addition to Thunderbees. And they are in stock here at Texas Paintball. I'll have some more information on a separate video about that. So I'm going to detonate this and sit it right here in front of me and let it go off. And Christian's backing up because he's more worried than I am.
I don't mess with grenades, bro.
Anyway, so EG67 Enola Gay, it's a mild frag grenade with some BBs inside of it. There's now an unmasked Chad closer than the cameraman is, just to give you an idea. So fire in the hole. Dude, that was nothing. That was actually nothing.
Literally no shrapnel got even close to me.
I have one BB that like landed in my shirt, and that's it. All right, so a minute ago we did one seated with it in front, and after doing that I realized the worst case scenario would be it blowing up in someone's hand. So I'm going to do a second test with it in my hand, in front of my face, right now, and see if I still have fingers left. But I know that several people have already done this, so, and I just did one in front of me. Very confident about it. You ready?
Yep.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Cool. I've had a Thunderbee go off in my hand before, and it hurt worse than that.
All right.
So. Grenade! Oh, you're dead! Oh, you're dead! All right, welcome back, guys. Obviously, you just saw 2 safety videos we conducted yesterday, as well as one first-person footage from a paintball game that I played recently, a few months ago, using an EG67. Like I said, back then I thought they were much louder because we're playing Connex boxes by and large. A couple things I want to clarify. One, the gentleman in the first, was in both videos, but he was visible in the first video, that is standing nearby and does not have a mask on. That is Chad, the manager of Texas Paintball. He has seen this test several times and felt comfortable being there, so that was sort of out of my control. But I was wearing a mask, obviously, as you could tell. My cameraman was as well, just for those of you who want to talk about safety. As you noticed, and as I mentioned before, I didn't clinch the grenade, but the gentleman, the airsoft player who pushed to bring this product on initially did. He wore no glove and clinched the grenade. That was the test that Chad required to be able to make sure that this product was safe enough with the worst case scenario to bring it on board. And so I was sort of recreating that because they didn't have any video footage of it. Another thing I wanted to clarify was that after the second one was in my hand, I said I'd had a grenade go off or a Thunder Bee go off in my hand, and it hurt worse than that. What I meant was that the Thunder Bee hurt worse than the EG67. I want to make sure that was clear in how I was saying that, because it may have sounded like I was saying the EG67 hurt worse, but it did not. So those are the demo videos and a real world video and all the tips and tricks for Thunder Bees. So if you guys have any further questions, comment and tag me, and I will try to do my best to get back to you guys. Otherwise, I hope you guys found this video enlightening. I know it was a little bit long, but I tried to cover all the bases from start to finish on how they function, work, and what to do with them. So appreciate you guys watching this video, and let me know if you have any more that you need to know. Thanks.